Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be talking about the books that I read in July. So I read 13 things in July, so let's just get started. The first book that I read was The Disappearing Act by Catherine Steadman. And Catherine Steadman is a thriller author that I feel like is so underrated. I feel like I never shut up about her book, Something in the Water. That's always one of the thrillers that I will recommend to people who ask me for recommendations. But all three of her books have been incredible. So she's definitely 3 for 3. This one, however, might be my favorite, or at least it's tied for 5 stars with Something in the Water. So this book is maybe a contender for my favorite book of the year. We will see. But I gave it 5 stars. It was amazing. It was about this woman who is an actress in London, and she gets kind of this too good to be believed opportunity to come to Hollywood and audition for some like big movies, and there's talks of her starring in like the next big summer blockbuster. And so she flies from London to Hollywood, and she's at a casting call for one of the auditions that her agent set her up with. And at this casting call, obviously, there's a lot of people that look exactly like her for whatever part this is. And this one woman asks her if she can feed her car meter while she goes in for her audition. And so our main character says sure, and the woman hands her her car keys and I think her phone and her wallet. So the main character goes, feeds the meter, comes back into the audition room, and that lady is nowhere to be found. And it's kind of like, how far could she get without her car key, her wallet, her phone? So that's kind of the mystery of like, who is this woman and where did she go? And there's a lot of other things going on outside of that, and it kind of has like that gritty, seedy underbelly of Hollywood vibe. But it was interesting because Catherine Steadman is a working actress. She has been, I think the only thing I've seen her in was Downton Abbey, but it was interesting to read about a lot of this acting world stuff because she is familiar and she works in that industry. And so I think it was great for her to write a thriller set around all this kind of movie stuff since she has firsthand experience with it. But I just loved it. I love stuff about acting anyway because theater, I've been acting since I was 7, so that's always right up my alley. But this just had so many twists and turns and spooky moments, and I absolutely loved it. Catherine Steadman, cannot stop talking about her. I love her. Next, I read Heartstopper Volume 3. I do not rate graphic novels, but I really enjoyed this. It is kind of hinting at some like deeper themes and issues going on with our characters, so I'm excited to see where that goes. And yeah, I have a hold on Volume 4 at my library, so I'm very excited to get to that. Next, I read 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I think I'm one of the few people who had not read it yet. I have a reading vlog for this and Crooked Kingdom, which I will link above. But yes, 6 of Crows, I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really, really loved it. I had really high expectations because it's so hyped, and I was really glad that I wasn't let down with that. I loved Kaz and Nina and Wylan and just the whole heist. It was just perfect. It was perfect. I love a good heist. The characters were just so well fleshed out for how many there are, and the pacing was really good, and just such a big improvement over the Grisha trilogy. I really, really loved it. So yeah, if you want to hear me talk about it for like 30 minutes, check out my reading vlog. So then I might as well jump around and talk about Crooked Kingdom. Crooked Kingdom I gave a 4. Overall, like, I didn't have as much fun reading it as I did with 6 of Crows. I thought there were a lot of scenes that really dragged, and just because it took place within like the one city, the stakes didn't feel as high, so I wasn't as invested. But I love Wylan, And I love that we got to know so much more about Wylan and Jesper and Wylan. So I was really, really happy about that. So I think that's kind of what sealed it for me, as well as the way that it ended and kind of how everything wrapped up, I thought was really, really satisfying. So there's some like specific scenes that I really, really loved, but overall I just it wasn't as much of a page turner as Six of Crows was. Then I reread Coraline, and Coraline is kind of a comfort read for me. I absolutely love the book and the movie. I do think in a lot of ways the movie's better than the book, but I was just in the mood to read something cozy, and to me Coraline is cozy. Of course, I gave it 5 stars. I've read it probably 5 or 6 times now, and I just love it. It has such a good, like, spooky fairy tale kind of vibe, and I really like the overall message, and just, it has the perfect amount of spoopy. I love it so much. I'm actually really excited because my local theater is showing Coraline, I think the day before I'm gonna post this video, but it hasn't happened yet, and I'm really excited to experience it on the big screen again. I just love Coraline so much.
No way! You're not sewing buttons in my eyes!
Oh, but we need a yes if you want to stay here.
So sharp you won't feel a thing. Ow!
So a good tie-in to this, actually, right after that, I read Horrid by Katrina Leno, and at the time I gave this 4 stars, but I really think it's more of a subjective 5 for me. I went into this with no expectations. I hadn't heard anyone talk about it, and I looked on Goodreads and it had really, really mixed reviews, so I was like, I'm just gonna give it like 50 pages. If it doesn't interest me, I'm gonna DNF it. So that's kind of the mindset I went into it with, but I ended up loving it so much. I'm not gonna get super into it because I do have a book review, like a spoiler-free book review for that book coming out later after this video. So I don't want to just rehash everything I'm gonna say in my future video, but it is about this girl who, her and her mom move across the country, and they live in her grandmother's old house, which is like this big, almost mansion. It's a huge house that's been abandoned for a while, and everyone in the town is surprised to see anyone living there. And some spooky things start happening, and there's maybe some family secrets that her mom never told her, and that's why, you know, they don't really have a choice money-wise. They kind of have to move into this house because they don't have to pay to live there, but there's maybe a reason why our main character's mom never took her to visit her grandma or, you know, visited that house up until they had no other choice. So it definitely gave me Coraline vibes, and I think that's why I loved it so much. It definitely had like a gothic horror fairy tale aesthetic going on, and this poem running through it, and like a theme of black roses, and I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. So I would highly recommend that one. It'd be a great fall read. Next, I read One by One by Ruth Ware, and I gave this 3.5 stars. This is a book that is very reminiscent of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. It's kind of that locked room mystery where people start getting killed off one by one, and it's obviously someone who is in that same location that's doing it. So, you know, out of all the characters introduced at the beginning, it has to be one of them that is the killer. And it's cool because Ruth Ware hasn't done this kind of style or genre, subgenre of thriller before, but it wasn't my favorite of hers just because of the pacing was a little slow. It is about this group of colleagues who work for this kind of startup company that is basically Spotify mixed with Twitch, where you can listen to songs like that famous people are listening to simultaneously live, and they kind of have like a work retreat, and they go to this ski chalet. They get snowed in, and some creepy stuff starts happening, and it just took a really long time to get interesting. There was a lot of setup and there's a lot of skiing language. I mean, it is at a ski resort. I understand that, but there was just a lot of like ski lingo and explanations of like ski terminology, I guess, that I just didn't really care about. Never been skiing. So there was a lot of that. However, the second half really sealed the deal for me. It was so good. My heart was literally racing towards the end of this book. There were some scenes that gave me chills, like just the exact type of suspense that I love. So once again, Ruth Ware has done it, but it just was slow to start. It would be a great winter read because it takes place in the winter and a bunch of snow and everything like that. And it is dual perspective, which is new for Ruth Ware as well. We have the perspective of an employee for the company that's staying at this ski chalet, and then we have a perspective from an employee of the ski chalet. So that was really interesting to see because I haven't read many dual perspective thrillers, and I think it was done really well. But yeah, one by one. Next, I read Beach Read by Emily Henry, and this was especially fun because I buddy read this with Audrey, who I had buddy read the Truly Devious books with. And Beach Read I ended up giving 4 stars. And if you have been around on my channel for a while, you will know that I do not read romance that often. Not really purposefully. It's not that I don't like that genre. I think I'm just interested in like very specific books from that genre. And I'm interested in so many more books like from the thriller genre. So it's like you can only read so many books in a year. And so I end up like romance is the least read genre for me at the end of the year, but I still really like it and I'm always looking for recommendations. But I really love this. It, you know, it didn't have that 5-star extra something something for me because I'm kind of stingy with my 5 stars, but it was a solid 4-star. It's about these 2 neighbors who are living in these like lake houses, and turns out they're both writers, and they kind of had this weird rivalry in the past, and they challenge each other to write a book in the other person's genre. So our main character, she writes romance, and the male character, I think he writes literary fiction, so, or thriller? I can't remember. But it was really interesting too because it had the whole, like, a lot of conversations about being a writer and how do you come up with stories, and our character's perspective as a romance author on like romance in her own life. And I just thought it was really fun. There was some really good witty banter. A lot of the side characters that lived in the town I also really liked, and it was just a really fun summer read. So I would definitely recommend that for people who aren't super into the romance genre. I think this was a really good one, and I'm definitely excited to pick up more of Emily Henry's books. Alright, next I read 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard, and I gave this 3 stars. This was a solid thriller, but it just didn't suck me in as much as I had hoped it would, because both my parents read it and I think both of them liked it more than I did. But this takes place in Ireland at the beginning of the COVID pandemic last spring, and basically these 2 characters kind of start dating right before like mandatory lockdown quarantine. You can't visit someone who doesn't live, who's not in your household. And so they kind of have to quickly make the decision of, should we go long distance for who knows how long, our government, you know, we're going to be on lockdown, or do we move in together so that we can keep dating during lockdown? And so they decide to move in together, and things just aren't the way that they seemed. Let's just say that. It was really good. I really liked the twists and turns, but for me, the pacing was just a little bit too slow. And there were a lot of flashbacks to scenes that had already happened, but we see it from a different viewpoint, or a different, like looking back on it now that we have some other piece of information. And it just kind of got a little bit repetitive in those instances for me, and I think that kind of thing works so much better on film, like, you know, in like a mini series or something where you look at a scene again and you're watching it, but you notice different things now because you have all this extra insight that you didn't have the first time. But reading it kind of got repetitive, so that also kind of slowed the pacing for me, but it was still a solid time. I would definitely be interested in picking up more books by this author, and it was interesting to have one set during the pandemic, so yeah. Then next I read My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Grady Hendrix is an author that I have been meaning to read for a very, very long time, and I never got around to it. And I will be honest, I picked up My Best Friend's Exorcism solely based on the like when I was looking at all of Grady Hendrix books, I picked this one to read first because of the cover. I love like the retro VHS thing that this cover has going on. And I ended up giving this 3 stars. It's a 3-star. It wasn't mind-blowing, but it also wasn't, you know, I didn't dislike it. It was just very kind of average for me. It is about this girl whose best friend gets possessed, as you would assume from the title, and it takes place in the 80s. And what I did like about it was it has the total like 80s horror movie, like campy, cheesy horror movie trope kind of vibes. You know, overly gory, but not in like a gross way, just in like a really cheesy fake blood kind of gory way. So I really loved that this book kind of captured the vibes of like Friday the 13th, if instead of a slasher, it was like a demonic possession movie. It definitely had those kind of vibes. But what I really liked about it that was unexpected was the friendship. There was a big focus towards the end on friendship, and the relationship between these 2 best friends from when they were kids to when they got to high school, and kind of the resolution of the book. I really, really liked what it had to say about friendship, and I honestly, like, their friendship reminded me a lot of the friendships that I have with my friends that I've known for years and years and years and years. And so I really like that, and I didn't expect it to be like heartwarming in that sense. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of trigger warnings for this book, so be sure to look those up before you go into it. The one that kind of bothered me that I wasn't expecting, but I should have, because those kind of 80s horror movies do have this, is animal death. It was very, very short, like 1 page, and then it was done. But it was just something that doesn't come up often in books that I read, and so I just don't really like that kind of thing. But that's my fault for not looking it up first. But I do want to, if anyone else is like sensitive to animal stuff like I am, beware of that. But like I said, it was really short and it wasn't super graphic or anything. But yeah, it was definitely fun. It was a wild ride. Definitely felt like I was watching a cheesy horror movie, but I think I just wanted it to be more spooky, but it was just more like campy horror, which is fine. But yeah, I definitely want to read more by Grady Hendrix though. I really want to read Southern Vampires Book Club. I'll put a picture here. I can't remember the title, but that's definitely on my list. So yeah, it was fun. It was definitely like so different than anything I've ever read, and I really appreciate it for that. And then on the last day of July, I read 2 really quick reads, cute graphic novels, and that was Princess Ever After by Kay O'Neill. And I have only previously read the first 2 Tea Dragon Society books by Kay O'Neill, and I didn't really, for some reason, think to look at what else they've done, but this was really cute. It was kind of like a twist on traditional, like, damsel in distress kind of thing, where this one princess saves this other princess from a tower, and they kind of go around saving other princes from towers or people in like random kind of fantasy peril. And it was just really cute. It was really quick. And it, you know, it had those feel-good vibes. So I enjoyed it. And then I also picked up Aquicorn Cove, also by Kay O'Neill. And this was adorable. There were some really, really cute visuals in here. And some surprisingly like poignant moments related to like grief that really hit me, where I was like, this book is coming for me, and I didn't expect that. But what I ultimately loved was it had a huge focus on ocean conservation, both like before the book started and then after. At the end of the book, there's like a bunch of information on like how to find out more about what you can do for ocean conservation and stuff like that, and I really, really love that. But it was really cute. The Aquicorns were so cute. There was this one baby Aquicorn that was like a coral pink color and like this big, and it had a little tiny tail, and it was so cute. So yeah, definitely love it. I wish it was like a series like Tea Dragon Society was, because it was literally like the Aquicorns were just as cute as the Tea Dragons, but like a aquatic version of that. So I would have liked more, but needless to say, I really want to pet Aquicorn, so if anyone has any hookups, let me know. But yes, those are the books that I read in July. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you made it to the end of this video, leave the wave emoji. I think there's a wave emoji, or some sort of like beachy summery emoji in the comments. That'd be cool. I decided not to do the format for my June wrap up, mostly because I didn't put that video up until like a little bit through July, and I already hadn't started doing that. So we'll see how I feel in the future. But yeah, I think that's it. Spooky season's almost here, summer's almost over, and I cannot wait. So let me know if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them. If you have any specific Grady Hendrix recommendations, I would love to know, and I will see you next time. Bye!